Happy Thursday, everybody. Happy Thursday. Let me wipe this off for y'all real quick. Hold on, chat. My bad, y'all. I can always tell when there's something on the camera because it just looks crazy. All right, y'all. May 1st. Happy May, everybody. May 1st, 2025. Welcome to the daily live stream. Welcome to Cozy Corner TV, ladies and gentlemen. I am your host, Karen Smith. Call me Q. We on the corner, y'all. What's up? Good evening. Good morning. It's morning somewhere. Good night. It's night somewhere. Good afternoon. News today. So what I'm going to do is, my bad if my voice sounds a little scratchy. I guess my allergies are not happy with the weather where I'm located at in the world. But so you guys just bear with me if I sound a little bit scratchy. That's my fault tonight. But we got news tonight. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna take a look at a couple clips that we're gonna look at some tomorrow, but not all. But it's news I wanted you guys to watch. So every now and then on the channel, I do this. I come on, I play the news for you guys. And it's news clips that I think you won't go to these particular channels and watch. And because I exist in this space to, educate people all over the world, but especially people in my own community and people who might not be as privy to certain things going on around the world and in the news. I play these things because you guys might not go somewhere else to find it. So if you come here to watch me, you'll get to see it. And this is also how I pay honor to the people who also do this content creation thing on YouTube, and you can go find them as well and watch their channels as I always promote here on this channel. So with that being said, first up on the menu, guys, wherever you are at, make sure you're grounded and regulated as we get ready to digest this news, because sometimes news is triggering, and if you are not regulated and grounded, please watch this later on. So with that being said, if you're ready to go, welcome to the live stream. First up on the menu is going to be Officer Tatum. Shout out to Officer Brandon Tatum. We got Black pastors can't handle Trump's newest moves on deportations and DEI. So Brandon Tatum's going to go over a couple clips where we got some black pastors spazzing out because they don't really like what their president is doing currently. Which I don't know what these pastors are doing necessarily, but I'm just gonna go out on the limb and say it's not very biblical if they are bashing their president. So we're gonna take a look at that. Then we're gonna go to Fox News. Shout out to Fox News. Breaking: Mike Waltz out as National Security Advisor. Additional names likely to come. So Mike Waltz was Trump's national security advisor. He is out of the cabinet officially. And if you guys are not aware who Mike Waltz is, he is the man who essentially added the reporter to the Signal chat. Now, some people in the chat were going nuts over this because they were saying, well, why is Mike Waltz out of the cabinet and Pete Hegseth was the one leaking all the details and he's not fired? Well, it says names likely to come, so we don't know what that means, but we'll see what Fox News covered. Then we're going to switch over, still with Fox News. JD Vance explains the story behind Mike Waltz's job change. So apparently when it came to JD Vance explaining this, he used a little bit different verbiage. Mike Waltz's job change. So I'm interested to see how VP JD Vance is going to cover that. Then we're going to jump over to Anthony Brian Logan. Shout out to ABL if you guys already watch him. He says Tampon Tim, so Tim Waltz, says he was picked to cold talk to white guys. This was the most ridiculous thing I have ever seen. And you know what? I said, okay, this is great, because when white people hear, especially white dudes, shout out to Exilla. How you guys doing? Hit that like button for me, guys. Are you a good boy? That's subjective. Have you been behaving? I can't tell that. You have to tell me if you've been good or not. But with that being said, if you guys already watched Anthony Logan, I thought this was crazy. Tim Walz actually goes on record in a public square to say that he was actually hired because he can code talk to white dudes. I found this hilarious, and I was so happy it happened, because I'm like, finally, now, people will get to see how stupid it is when people say things just like, oh, because I can relate to black people, or like dumb stuff they were doing at the DNC, putting people up there at the DNC instead of real people to talk to issues that they thought would appeal to the black community. So Tim Waltz appears to have been hired because he can cold talk to white dudes, which I was like, you gotta be kidding me. This guy can't cold talk to anybody. But we're gonna see what Anthony Logan had to say about that. Then we're gonna jump over to shout out to Todd over at the Simple Investor. I always let you guys know on my live stream that Canada is my second most watched country to the United States. Usually under them, it's either Germany or the UK, but it's usually the United States and then Canada. So I try to cover as much Canadian news as I can. And Todd over at the Simple Investor covered what happened, Canada. So this is regarding their federal election results. I'm not gonna lie, Todd, I was disappointed. That's all I'm gonna say right now. But we're gonna cover what Todd had to say about some election results, and then Matt Morris. Shout out to Matt Morris. We react to a couple things by Matt on this channel often. Canada is already imploding. So with that being said, let's jump into the news stream. When it is a news stream, I am not reacting as much as I am during the day with you guys or on a regular live stream. It's here for you guys to strictly watch the news because it's a different type of news setting, right? So that's the part of why we exist here on Cozy Corner TV. Sometimes we watch the news and then the next day we go over it together. Sometimes I'll jump on here and depending on what's said, I might have something to say. So with that being said, I'm going to start playing this and you guys will see me and either hear me in the background, or I will slide in with my chair and make a reaction, or I will fast forward a song or a commercial. So with that being said, let's jump right in.
I have to say as a pastor, Whoopi, that I think Jesus is the biggest victim of identity theft. Because I don't know who this Jesus is they're talking about.
JD Vance, the light is getting ready to come on. Maggot, the light is getting ready to come on. Welcome, because the roaches will check in.
A lot of black pastors are the problem. Nobody can deny what I'm saying, because if you grew up black and you know that your pastor talking like this, they're insane and they're screwing you over. This video is brought to you by Synergy Life, ladies and gentlemen. It's finally here. We have the Synergy Day and Synergy.
Shout out to Brandon Tatum.
Let me just say this real quick to start the video. I think you guys will understand this when I articulate it this way. The reason why a certain community in America, which is the melanated community, is struggling so much is because our pastors, a lot of black pastors are the problem. I'm going to show you 2 examples. Nobody can deny what I'm saying, because if you grew up black and you know that your pastor talking like this, they're insane and they're screwing you over. One is a politician that's a House of Representative, or I think maybe he's a senator, Warnock. And then we have Jamal Bryant, Mr. Serial Cheater. He literally cheated on his wife in front of everybody at the church, had kids out of wedlock. Then he left that church to go to another scamming pastor church. And then now what is he doing? He's not telling y'all about the gospel of Jesus Christ as much as he should. He's talking to you about Elon Musk and Donald Trump behind the pulpit. The same people that claim there should be a separation of church and state when conservatives do things that are associated with God and government is the same people that are implementing their own deviation from separation of church and state. Don't you find that interesting? They want a separation when it's conservatives doing it, but when they do it, there is no separation. You shouldn't even be talking about this in your pulpit if you think there's a separation between church and state. But let me give you an example. Let's go with Pastor Jamal Bryant. 2 things he did. The Target boycott, which was absolutely asinine, and I can get to that in a minute. And also him calling MAGA roaches. Roll the clip.
The boycott of Target during Lent has had a significant impact on the bottom line of the company, according to the pastor leading the charge.
The fast shifts to a full-out boycott.
The CEO of Target is talking with Dr. Bryant about steps moving forward. So far, more than 200,000 people have signed up to be a part of this fast.
We had 4 asks and only walked away with one thing. Target has agreed that by July the 31st,
They will complete the pledge of $2 billion for black business. We give you 40 days to answer 4, not 1.
Hey everybody, it's Tony Robbins and Dean Graziosi. I have a question for you. If you had to make a choice between having massive impact on people's lives or having real financial freedom, which would you pick? Well, the truth is you don't have to choose because there's an industry that's...
We ain't going back in there. We asked that they would invest $250 million in the black banks so people would have access to capital for businesses and for home ownership. We asked Target to invest in HBCUs and to give a re-examination of what DEI would look like in the future.
You met with the CEO?
Yes,
What was that like?
we're still meeting. I think it's a healthy start for where it is that we are.
Do you think they hear you?
Oh, they hear me. The cash register hears me. So no, they hear me. Power concedes nothing without a demand. What I've heard is a lot of people resolved in not going back. It's going to be a whole lot of heavy lifting that will be on the shoulders of Target to do, not for us.
What do you think the impact of this movement has been so far?
I think that companies will be leery about how they mishandle minority communities, knowing what the impact has been on Target and not wanting it to visit their own doors.
Let me just touch on this Target boycott real quick. It is interesting to me that every time black people want to do something, especially these pastors, it's grievance culture. Like, why is it that you feel more entitled to hurt the white man to build you up, allegedly, because you think the Target is only white people selling their products in there? You just forget about the black people that work there and the black people that sell their products in Target. Let's just forget about them right now for the sake of these ignorant pastors. But just say that that's the white man thing. You want to tear down Target unless they somehow create value for you. Why don't you Negroes create your own value? I will never understand this. How about you, instead of saying, we're going to boycott Target, we're going to pay, look, they got to do the demands, they're going to do DI, they're going to invest in black neighborhoods. How about you say, we're only going to spend money in black neighborhoods, on black businesses. Whether they're in Target or they're in Walmart, no matter where they're at, we only buy products from black companies. We only invest our own money in the black banks. We only send all of our kids to HBCUs. Do you know, y'all know the reason why they'll never do that? Because they have no interest in putting millions of dollars into a black-owned bank. But they want Target to invest in black banks. They have no desire whatsoever to address violence in their own community. They want Target to do it. They have no desire whatsoever to make sure that our young people are intelligent and qualified for the job. They want Target to do it. I'm telling you, they have no interest in unloading money and profits and shares of companies back to reinvigorate the community or inner city. They have no desire. They want Target to do it. So they're going to get mad at Target and try to bankrupt Target so they can give money to a community that they don't even support. And let me just add this real quick. There was another thing I wanted to say on that. I'm going to move on. Let's move on to his new grift, which is calling MAGA or Trump supporters, including black folks, roaches. Roll clip.
Those of y'all who are from the suburbs, those of y'all that come from a gated community, those of you who live out yonder, you ain't gonna understand this example. But when I used to live with my grandmother in the projects of New York, y'all ain't saying nothing. I discovered something, that roaches only start running when you turn the lights on. As long as the lights are out, they gonna be comfortable eating your cereal. Y'all ain't saying nothing, climbing in your cupboard. But when you turn the light on, all of the roaches gotta stop moving. I came to give a warning. Elon Musk, the light is getting ready to come on. Donald Trump, the light is getting ready to come on. JD Vance, the light is getting ready to come on. MAGA, the light is getting ready to come on. Welcome, because the roaches will check in, but they won't check out. The lights are coming on.
Now, instead of him using his time, effort, and energy to project stupidity instead of preaching the gospel of Jesus Christ, he should be spending his time to make his roach analogy about the devil or about gay marriage, all this other crazy stuff. Maybe he should make a roach analogy about his dirty secrets, because he was roaching it up with all these women. He roaching it up on the side. And this is just people you know about. I guarantee you Jamal Brown was sleeping with all kinds of women that he didn't get pregnant. But he was roaching it up till they turned the lights on and found out he was cheating because of a woman pregnant with his kid in the church. Maybe he don't like his second or third marriage. But bro, you the roach. If you ask me, you guys are the one getting exposed. We're turning the lights on to the LGBTQ stuff that y'all pushing, the trans stuff that y'all pushing, the anti-American stuff that y'all pushing, the racism that y'all stand by. Y'all are the roaches. You dirty pastors. But yet Donald Trump, the MAGA, got more of the black vote than any Republican, more of the minority vote than any Republican. But we the roaches. Don't you find it interesting that they consider and classify as roaches? Over the pulpit, this is how they talk in vitriolic behavior against MAGA, because they assume MAGA is white, and therefore Democrats are black, and it's black against white. That's what they're doing. They're not talking about policy position. They're not sitting here acknowledging as a pastor that illegal aliens is displacing black folks in their position in America. Why do they want to talk about that? The more children that Hispanics have, the less children that blacks have, the more black people who are incarcerated, the more black people getting killed by each other, and the more the Mexican population is growing, they're going to become the majority minority, which means that their vote is going to count way more than anybody else's vote. And so when they go vote for Republican, black people can vote 100% for whatever side they want. It's not going to even matter because they're politically irrelevant. But the pastor won't talk about that. Now let's go to Warnock, who was talking to Sonny Host and wrote a clip.
Pastor, of course, and you call yourself a Matthew 25 Christian. And for those that don't know that verse says, I was a stranger and you welcomed me in. But you have warned that right now in this country, people are trying to weaponize despair. And we are seeing migrants being sent to a notorious foreign prison without any semblance of due process. We have Kilmar Abrego Garcia, a Maryland man, sent to that very same prison based on an administrative error, and now the government here says we can't get him back. What do you make of this country welcoming in strangers?
Well, I have to tell you, as I am a Matthew 25 Christian, and Jesus said the way you treat the folks who are on the margins, that is the acid test of your spirituality. That's what that text is all about. And as I witness and watch what's happening, and in a lot of it, it seems that cruelty is the point.
Yeah.
And so when I watch this and hear it coming from folks who have a lot to say about their Christian identity, I have to say as a pastor, Whoopi, that I think Jesus is the biggest victim of identity theft in the country. Because I don't know who this Jesus is they're talking about. You know, the Jesus I know was born in a barrio called Bethlehem. Raised in a ghetto called Nazareth. He was an immigrant, smuggled into Egypt. And in his very first sermon, he sent it to the poor. It's good news to the poor, deliverance to the captives, preaching the year of the Lord's freedom. And so that's something that I try to do and embody in my work as a United States Senator. I think that our country is going through what I call a kind of soul weariness. I know folks say we're in a constitutional crisis. We're definitely in a spiritual crisis. And you know how sometimes you wake up in the morning and you just feel bad? You can't quite put your finger on it. I think after years of COVID, 20 years of what felt like endless war, and then piling on top of all of that, demagogues who traffic in division because they have no vision. I think the weight of it all has got folks on the left and the right just kind of feeling soul weary, like a low-grade fever. And what we need is leaders who can remind us of who we are when we stand together. I still believe in this country. I still believe in the heart of what we seek to represent, e pluribus unum, out of many one. And the COVID pandemic reminded us of the ways in which we're all connected. If my neighbor got the virus, that meant that I'm potentially in peril. That doesn't make my neighbor my enemy. Actually, it means that I have an enlightened self-interest in the well-being of my neighbor. Her health care is good for my health.
You know what bothers me is they always trying to put Jesus in this, especially these fake Christians. Warnock is not a real Christian. Warnock is supporting gay marriage and all kind of trans LGBTQ. He probably believed in female pastors and all this stuff, even gay pastors. Warnock is the modern, progressive, non-godly, no exposure to Jesus Christ type of pastor. Why? Because they always talk about Jerusalem and Bethlehem and all these other places to draw an analogy that's really not even connected with the ultimate analogy, which is eternal life in the kingdom of God. Let me explain this to you. Don't you find it interesting that they always say Jesus Christ was an immigrant, Jesus Christ, legally. And when I say legally, it means how do you think you're going to get into the kingdom of God? Jesus said, I'm the only way. They're not going to be smuggling people into the kingdom of God. They're going to smuggle people into heaven. You're not going to get smuggled. You can't go nowhere but through the gate. And in America, we allow millions of people to migrate to this country legally. Millions. We have the most immigrants out of any country in the entire world. You can compare that to the kingdom. You can be engrafted into the salvation plan, even if you're a Jew or not. But they never make that analogy of the strictness and the laws that are in place that are very stringent in what God has called us to do. You ain't gonna make it to heaven no matter what you do. You can't go under a tunnel, you can't climb over the fence, you're not gonna get snuck in here, you're not gonna get a green card. You have to go through Jesus Christ of Nazareth. That's one way. And then they never talk about that analogy. I wonder why. Because it doesn't fit their narrative. You ain't gonna be able to just do whatever you want to do to get to heaven. That's your ultimate destination. That's the ultimate analogy. They always act like Jesus was a hippie. He was running around just letting everything slide. No, Jesus was counterculture. Jesus was the one standing up and saying that debauchery that you guys are doing is wrong in the eyes of God. That what you think that you are committing adultery because you don't do it in the flesh, no, you still committed adultery because you did it in your heart. Jesus was calling out the falsehoods of the average societal structure that he was living under, which is almost exactly how conservatives are calling out progressives. If Jesus was alive today, you think he'll be supportive of gay marriage? Of course he wouldn't. If Jesus was alive today, you think he'd be supportive of people sneaking into somebody else's country illegally? He told us to obey the laws of the land. That's what the Bible says. He didn't tell us to be thieves and stealing and doing all this old crazy stuff. That's not what Jesus called us to be. That's not what he called us to do. Do you want to go down the list? The debauchery that's going on in America, Jesus would be diametrically opposed to it. He wouldn't support it whatsoever. Jesus was a Jew. Jesus followed the law. Jesus was a lot stricter than what people try to act like he is. All you got to do is read Matthew. If you love me, you'll keep my commandments. If your righteousness doesn't exceed that of the scribe or the Pharisee, there's no way you'll enter into the kingdom of God. Lord, Lord, have I not prophesied in thy name? Have I not did all this wondrous work? Depart from me, you worker of iniquity. Y'all forget to read that part. Broad is the way, broad is the path, narrow is the way. Only a few will scarcely get in. Y'all better stop playing with Jesus and start listening to what Jesus preached and stop trying to be cute with these analogies. Anyway, I said enough. Those are 2 examples. Comment in the comment section.
You gotta appreciate Brandon and the way he says it. He said, y'all better stop playing with Jesus and these cute analogies. It's true though. It's very true. Jesus was very countercultural. He did come on deck and tell many people, hey, what you're doing is right. He would always tell religious leaders like, hey, you're putting demands on people that you yourself can't even meet. He didn't appreciate things like that, and he was very vocal about it. He was extremely outspoken about it. He was the one that would come and do things like have conversations with women that not just men, but people in general wouldn't talk to. He would have conversations with men and women that people wouldn't talk to, society, like lepers, no one wanted to be around. So, he was very countercultural, very disruptive. All right, guys, so we're going to jump over to Fox News. We got 2 from Fox. We got, first up, Mike Waltz out as National Security Advisor, additional names likely to come. And then we're going to jump over. JD Vance explains the story behind Mike Waltz's job change. So, first up, let's see what happened with Mr. Mike Waltz.
We begin with breaking news. Sources are confirming to Fox News that National Security Advisor Mike Waltz is out, as well as his deputy Alex Wong. Additional names are likely to come, we're told, and we expect to hear from the president on this soon. I'm Harris Faulkner. You are in the Faulkner Focus. State Department spokesperson Tammy Bruce is also with me and coming up. First, though, let's get the news of what's coming together right now. Chief National Security Correspondent Jennifer Griffin is at the Pentagon. Jennifer.
Well, Harris, this is really stunning news coming out of the White House. It's been confirmed by our own Jackie Heinrich, White House correspondent, that Mike Waltz, the National Security Advisor, and his deputy, Alex Wong, have been pushed out of that position by the president. This comes just after the 100-day mark. You'll remember during the first Trump administration, of course, Mike Flynn was the shortest serving National Security Advisor. He lasted 24 days. This is obviously coming in the wake of what has become known as Signalgate, where shortly before the U.S. launched its military campaign against the Houthis in Yemen, Mike Waltz, as National Security Advisor, mistakenly added the Atlantic editor Jeffrey Goldberg to a Signal chat in which his defense secretary, as well as other national security, the head of the CIA and others, Marco Rubio, the Secretary of State, were on a very sensitive talk on this insecure platform that's not used for government conversations typically. That led to an embarrassing incident with Defense Secretary Hegseth sharing what are largely believed to be classified details of that Houthi operation about the timings of airstrikes, the timings and what kind of military platforms were going to be used. And so what we've seen a vacuum created here surrounding Defense Secretary Hegseth. He's fired 5 close associates in the wake of that Signalgate, as well as because of leak investigations here at the Pentagon. Some of those positions remain empty. And then National Security Advisor Mike Waltz, you'll remember, Harris, Laura Loomer, who is a conservative activist, went in to see the president and had a list of people on the National Security Council that Mike Waltz then had to turn around and fire. So there has been incredible instability at the top of the national security team for the president. And Jackie Heinrich is reporting that there could be more shoes to drop. In fact, we just heard from Tim Kaine, a Democratic senator who sits on the Senate Armed Services Committee. He just spoke to Fox News. If we have that isolated, it'd be interesting to hear from him right now.
All right, I don't know if we have that. We want to give team a chance to check up. Maybe you can give us a primer on it. This is just breaking right now from Democrat Senator Tim Kaine. Jennifer.
What he said was that, in fact, he believes that more shoes could drop, suggesting that there are more firings to come. He quoted Senator John McCain and talked about legs falling off a centipede. I think that was the quote. But he also earlier had spoken to our producers on the Hill, and he had expressed extreme concern about a late-night tweet by Defense Secretary Hegseth in which he threatened Iran with potential military action if they don't control the Houthis. And Senator Kaine, again, a key member of the Armed Services Committee, said we don't need another war in the Middle East, something that I think many would agree, in which the president, of course, campaigned on. So there's a lot of turmoil right now. Again, a great deal of vacuum at the top of the national security advising chain as a result of the removal of Mike Waltz, who had been seen as a loyalist to President Trump for many years. These are some of his closest advisors that have been
Absolutely. Jennifer, I don't mean to scoot away, but I need to. Tammy Bruce with the State Department is with us right now. Jennifer, great reporting. Thank you. Tammy Bruce, State Department spokesperson. So first of all, just kind of top line this for us. I mean, Jennifer has given us the news from the State Department perspective. Tammy.
Well, here's what I can tell you when it comes to national security for the country, the nature of the president, who's involved in making determinations about this nation's trajectory, of course, economically, when it comes to security. And what we've seen and what we know from President Trump is he's been very clear that his commitment is to diplomacy around the world. He is clearly an active and engaged president. That I think is an understatement. This is a man who comes from business where his vision and his understanding of what needs to occur is the guiding hand of everything that happens in this government. And of course, he is hands-on, literally, when it comes to making things happen, when it comes to the implementation of policies, etc., at every department, every day, whether it's the State Department or the Department of Defense, or of course, when it comes to who he chooses to advise him. So I'm not going to get ahead of what the president may or may not say later today. This is a White House framework. But what I do know is that The talent bench in this country and for this government is deep. And that, of course, this also is every day we see in this 100th day anniversary week, if you will, that the president is engaged in every aspect of the country. And the choices he makes moving forward will be, as usual, excellent and will be in the best interest of the American people.
You know, the president didn't get as much credit as he should have, Secretary. That mission was done well, it was completed well, and I think it's worth stating that through all of this is a leadership move now that's happening, but the actual mission that President Trump wanted worked out very well. Your last quick thought, we'll move forward.
Yeah, well, I think that's it. When we're looking at the choices that are made, when it comes to whether it's the Houthis, the nature of diplomacy with Iran, which of course always continues, bringing people to the table regarding Ukraine and Russia, the situation in Gaza, the critical minerals deal, which is actually a much broader deal with Ukraine, with money and resources that will be reinvested into Ukraine and its rebuilding after this horrible carnage that has unfolded over 3 years. So you've got major successes, economically and otherwise, as inflation goes down. It is a historic first 100 days. It has been aggressive. It's been exciting. And America is want to change by electing President Trump. And we're seeing the benefits of his vision on every single framework. And it's been a success. It will continue to be a success.
Secretary, let's move forward now. The big headline today, the defense secretary, with some of the harshest words we have seen toward Iran's regime and the support it has of terrorists. It's a terrorist state. Pete Hegseth laid down the law in a post last night. Message to Iran. We see your lethal support to the Houthis. We know exactly what you are doing. You know very well that the U.S. military is capable of, and you were warned. You may pay the consequence at the time and place of our choosing. In our Operation Rough Rider, the United States has launched more than 1,000 airstrikes on Houthi targets since mid-March, some 47 straight days of hitting that enemy. A nuclear watchdog group released a new report amid U.S. talks with Iran, and it warns the Trump administration about Iran's deceptive and very effective negotiating tactics. Here's a Fox headline on that report. Warning to Trump negotiators about deceptive Iranian version of the art of the deal. It adds Iranian regime gimmicks mean they are offering Trump nothing more than what was presented to Obama. I hear your reaction to this. I can't wait for you to drill down for us.
Well, look, President Trump has made it very clear when this began, and certainly we saw it in his first term. He doesn't put up with bunk, but he also knows, and he said this to Iran earlier, that if they didn't come to the table, if they weren't going to do the right thing, it would be very bad for them. Now, people can use their imagination, but I think also the Iranians understand what very bad can be. Obviously, they can't consult with General Soleimani at this point, because President Trump makes decisions about what's best for the people of the United States. In this case, as we've seen from day one to the 100th day, the 101st day, is that he wants diplomacy to work. He understands who he's dealing with. He is not just the best diplomat in the world, but he also is the best deal maker. He knows who's in that room. He knows that the Iranians are on their heels. He knows what's at stake for the Iranian people, for the people of the Middle East, for the people of the world. And he is going to make decisions first for what's best for the American people, and that then consequently is better for everyone else on the planet. So Donald Trump is not someone who gets fooled, and he is someone who knows what he wants when he goes into that room. He's made it clear that he's going to get what he wants, and that is why the American people put him back in that office.
You know, it's interesting. You bet our enemy knows it too, because this isn't his first go around.
I think so.
Second term. All right.
That's right.
The U.S. and Ukraine have inked a historic deal, and it happened yesterday. A long-awaited agreement, which really could have happened when Zelensky was in the United States not too long ago, but he didn't want to do it then. But anyway, the agreement gives the U.S. access to rare earth minerals, oil, and gas from Ukraine, and it also creates a reconstruction fund to give the U.S. financial and material support for the aid that it has provided. The landmark deal also changes the dynamic of the two countries' relationship. Russia's attacks on Ukraine's infrastructure now amount to attacks on American interests. This is a game changer. Secretary of State Marco Rubio celebrated the news, calling it a milestone in our shared prosperity, an important step in ending this war. Secretary Bruce, this is the next chapter, and Trump is writing it.
Well, you've given me a little bit of a promotion. I'm the spokesperson for the department, happily representing, of course, the Secretary of State.
I'm so sorry.
It's not going to give me nightmares. It'll be good. Thank you. Look, this is one of the most exciting things, Harris, and you're right. They were meant to sign this deal when President Zelensky was in the Oval Office. That day, this deal was supposed to have been signed. It's good, and it shows you that President Trump has patience, and he is willing to go back, even when someone makes a huge mistake. But the exciting part of this, as I mentioned briefly a little bit ago, is that the profits, the 50% of the profits that come from this deal will be reinvested back into Ukraine and reconstruction projects, economic projects. So it's about minerals, it's about oil, et cetera, as you've mentioned. So it's much broader than just a mineral deal. It is a reinvestment fund that has been created so that you can get things rebuilt quickly with funds that are from that region and developed from that country to make the difference. Because once this is over, and President Trump and his envoys will make that happen, there's been a lot of damage. And economic damage, physical damage. And our commitment is to help with that, but also to be present in making sure that the rest of the world knows that America is present in that region now as well.
Spokesperson from the State Department, we know that Iran and Russia have been put on notice now. We'll cover all of it. So glad you were here for the breaking news as well. Good to see you. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am.
Hey, everyone. I'm Emily Compagno.
All right, so that's a little bit about Mike Waltz. More names are likely to come. So now we got Vice President JD Vance explains the story behind Mike Waltz's job change. Let's take a listen.
Tonight, we are pleased to welcome Vice President JD Vance, who spoke to workers here at the Nucor steel plant in South Carolina earlier today. Mr. Vice President, thanks for the time.
Good to see you.
I want to talk to you about all this trip and what the purpose of it and your speech.
Sure.
But I want to start with the breaking news.
Yeah.
Why was Mike Waltz let go?
So it wasn't let go. He's being made ambassador to the United Nations, which of course is a Senate-confirmed position. I think you can make a good argument that it's a promotion. But we brought Mike on to do some serious reforms of the National Security Council. He has done that. I like Mike. I think he's a great guy. He's got the trust of both me and the president. But we also thought that he'd make a better UN ambassador as we get beyond this stage of the reforms that we've made to the National Security Council. You saw the president announce that Marco Rubio is going to step in as interim leader of the National Security Council. So I think the media wants to frame this as a firing. Donald Trump has fired a lot of people. He doesn't give them Senate-confirmed appointments afterwards. What he thinks is that Mike Waltz is going to better serve the administration, most importantly, the American people in that role, and I happen to agree with him.
But was it a direct result of the Signal chat? I mean, you were on that chat, and we saw the fallout from it. Is this a result of that?
No, it's not, Brett. I mean, look, what we came into the administration, and of course the president in his first term had some serious issues with the National Security Council. He said, Mike, you need to go in here, fire, frankly, a lot of people who aren't loyal to my agenda, who we think aren't even loyal to the American people, bring in the right collection of people to actually make the National Security Council function. And Mike has done that. And now it's time for Mike to do something else because he's done the job that I think he was asked to do. If the president wanted to fire him over the Signal thing, which by the way was a total nothing burger of a story, he would have just done it. But he actually decided it's better for Mike to be in this new role. He's given Mike the new role. That's it.
So what is the message to allies around the world? I mean, is Pete Hegseth safe as Defense Secretary? Are there other changes coming?
Well, again, I think certainly yes, Pete Hegseth is safe, and I think our cabinet secretaries, you saw yesterday the president, they're all doing a great job. On Pete in particular, I think the thing that is most underappreciated about Pete Hegseth and the great job that he's doing is we came in with the military with a serious morale problem. Recruitment and retention goals in most of the major services were way off. Pete has brought a certain esprit de corps. I think the leadership style has inspired a lot of people to join the military. We're now exceeding our recruitment goals. So yes, we've got total faith in Pete, but even the question, Brett, I think betrays a certain misunderstanding of what the goal here is. Mike Waltz is being moved from one administration job into a separate administration job where he has Senate confirmation. That's not, I think, what it's being framed as. That's the president deciding a guy who's a very good guy in Mike Waltz could do a better job at a different role.
And he's going to fight for him in the Senate.
Of course. They will fight for all of our nominees. I think he actually got all of our nominees through.
He did. You recorded your skepticism about launching a military operation against the Houthis on that Signal chat. You were kind of overruled, if you will, about those concerns from the Defense Secretary and the National Security Advisor. And that open-ended bombing has entered its 48th day. 48 straight days of U.S. bombing. What does that say? Is the U.S. prepared to strike Iran based on what we're seeing with the Houthis?
Let me say a couple things, Brett. First of all, if you go back to when those messages were leaked, what we were doing is having a private strategic conversation about how to message this to the American people. It's always important to explain what you're actually doing, how to ensure that some of the, frankly, our allied countries that are underspending on their own defense are actually carrying some of the burden. That was a concern that I raised about this particular operation. But I wasn't overruled. What happened is the president. No, it's fine. But the president. But
they expressed concerns that they won the day as far as the policy.
No, I think the president had made his desires clear, and our job is to implement it. And of course, part of implementing it is you talk about how best to do that, about when to actually launch a strike and so forth. And that's what the Signal chat revealed. And frankly, I thought it reflected well on me. I'm obviously biased about myself, but about Mike Waltz and Pete Hegseth, that we were deliberating how to implement the president's agenda. I think that's what a good national security team should do. But you asked about the Houthi campaign, and I think we're already seeing signs that the Houthis are saying no mas. They've been bombed. They've recognized that there are serious consequences to firing on American and other ships. And I actually think we're in a good place for the Houthis to stop attacking civilian vessels, to go back to doing whatever it is they were doing before they were attacking civilian vessels. And I think that if that were happening, then this bombing campaign would be over the next day.
You hear the criticism, though, from libertarians, from the left, that this is the new Vietnam. This is 48 days of bombing. People that are in the middle of the country may not know that we're in the middle of a hot war with Yemen. What do you say to that?
Well, not with Yemen, with a terrorist organization
Inside
that has been firing on American ships. And I think that people, we want to compare this to Vietnam. Come on. I think that the president has made it very clear that one of his core national security priorities is that if you load stuff onto a ship and you send it to the United States, we want to make sure that it shows up without the sailors getting killed, without the ship being destroyed. That is an objective that we're going to pursue forcefully if we have to.
With this Mike Waltz change, and I know you say it's ascension to the U.S. ambassador, but is this a change in policy? Is this a message in any way, shape, or form that it's a change?
Yeah. And if I can give some background into that question, Brett, I've already seen some folks saying that this is a war between the hawks and the anti-hawks, the neoconservatives versus MAGA, or the realists. That's not what this is about at all. Mike is a person, one, I think he's a good guy. He has my complete trust, and I know the president really likes Mike Waltz. He just thought that the UN ambassador position would be a better place for Mike Waltz to be. But the entire idea that this is about a national security team, and I know why the media wants to report this story because it's an exciting story. It's also a fake story.
Let's talk about your tour here. I was on it. It's very impressive, this facility.
It is.
What's the message you're sending?
The tour. Thank you, brother.
Yeah. No, it's very impressive. The facility here is really something.
It is.
What's the message you're sending by the tour?
Well, there are a couple things. First, I didn't fully appreciate how high-tech this steelmaking facility was. There's a lot of criticism that Donald Trump is trying to bring back the jobs of the past. These are the jobs of the future. Making American steel, building bridges and automobiles, homes for American people, and doing it in an incredibly sophisticated way. I just wanted to get a tour of one of the most high-tech steelmaking facilities in the world. I also, of course, wanted to meet the workers because, what President Trump has said, he's been clear about this, not just since his first term, but going back to the 1980s when he was talking about this stuff on Oprah and Phil Donahue. The president thinks that we have to make more of our own stuff.
The economy shrank. First time in 3 years. People are pointing to the tariff policy. There are people looking at their 401ks that are worried. What do you tell them? Is this going to work?
So the first thing is, when you talk about the economy, this is Joe Biden's economy. And we inherited $2 trillion of debt, the highest peacetime deficits in American history, a $1.2 trillion trade deficit, which fundamentally means we're not making enough of our own stuff. And the president came in and he said, this is not always going to be easy. It would have been very easy for Donald Trump to do what administrations past have done, which is borrow a lot of money and continue fueling the national debt. He said, no, we need a reset. We need American workers to have better jobs. We need to protect the jobs that they have right now. And we need to be more self-reliant as an economy, which, by the way, will drive down those skyrocketing levels of debt that we've seen. That is what he promised he was going to do. And he came in and we've started that process. Now, you're right, Brett. It doesn't happen overnight. This isn't always going to be easy. But if you think about what he's doing, he's saying for 40 years, with the exception of his first term, you had American leadership who were fundamentally offshoring America's wealth and prosperity in foreign companies. He's saying we're going to reshore America's wealth and make this the golden century for our country.
You traveled to India. Is that the first deal that's coming through?
I don't know if it'll be the first deal. I think it'll be among the first deals for sure. Pretty soon. The president, look, we've got negotiations with Japan, with Korea. We've got negotiations going on with some folks in Europe, and obviously we've got a good negotiation going on in India. What the president has said is we just want to rebalance trade. So some of the conversations I've had in India, for example, I think most Americans may not know, may not appreciate this. We have great agricultural products. Our farmers are making great things, but the Indian market is effectively closed off to American farmers. So what that means is that makes American farmers and American consumers more reliant on foreign competitors to grow the food that we eat. What our India deal will do fundamentally, I think, is open up India to American technology. It'll open up India to American farmers. It'll create more good American jobs. And it's the kind of trade deal that Donald Trump loves. He's not anti-trade. He's anti-unfair trade. He's anti the kind of trade where foreign competitors take advantage of us. The Indians, let's be honest, they've taken advantage of us for a very long time. Modi, the prime minister, is a tough negotiator, but we're going to rebalance that relationship, and that's why the president's doing what he's doing.
You worried about India and Pakistan?
Well, sure. I'm worried about any time you see a hotspot breaking out, especially between two nuclear powers. We've obviously been in close contact with our friends in India and Pakistan. Our hope here is that India responds to this terrorist attack in a way that doesn't lead to a broader regional conflict. And we hope, frankly, that Pakistan, to the extent that they're responsible, cooperates with India to make sure that the terrorists, sometimes operating in their territory, are hunted down and dealt with. That's how we hope this unfolds. We're obviously in close contact. We'll see what happens.
The president was in the Vatican, had this iconic image talking to Volodymyr Zelensky in those two chairs and huddled down. A much different scene than when he was last in the White House, as you well know. Where do you see that? Is that going to come to fruition?
Well, I think, first of all, we have to give the president some credit here because there was a really big breakthrough and hasn't gotten that much coverage. But for 3 years, these sides have fought, and each of them has said, no peace, we're going to fight until the other guy's basically knocked out. What we've seen now in the last couple of weeks is each side has put down that this is our peace proposal. The Ukrainians did it, the Russians did it, and now I think the question is to see whether we can actually find some middle ground here for these guys to bring this conflict to a close. I really don't believe that any person, the 8 billion people in the world, I don't think anybody could have gotten this deal done other than Donald J. Trump. When I say this deal, I mean getting these guys to actually propose a peace settlement, but it's going to be up to the Russians and the Ukrainians. Now that each side knows what the other's terms for peace are, it's going to be up to them to come to an agreement and stop this brutal, brutal conflict. It's not going anywhere, Brett. It's not going to end anytime soon. And I think for the Ukrainians, yes, of course, they're angry that they were invaded, but are we going to continue to lose thousands and thousands of soldiers over a few miles of territory this or that way? I hope both of them come to their senses. And if they do, it will be because Donald J. Trump, I think, brokered one of the great peace deals of the 21st century.
I mean, you got the minerals deal. You got that side. So you're optimistic. Can I say optimistic?
Look, I am optimistic, but it is ultimately, it's hard to say confident because the Russians and the Ukrainians, they're the ones who have to take the final step. We got them talking, we got them offering peace proposals, we got the minerals deal done. I think we're in a place where they've got to say, we're done with the fighting, we're done with losing thousands and thousands of young people. We're done with this, but only Russia and Ukraine can make that decision. That's not something even President Trump can do for them.
Mr. Vice President, stand by.
Hey, Sean Hannity here. Hey, click here to subscribe to Fox News YouTube page and catch our hottest interviews and most compelling analysis. You will not get it anywhere else.
Here's how you can end any fight.
JD Vance handles himself well, doing well. There was another short press conference that he did right before he was going to board the plane. I think when he was leaving India, and he spoke well there too. Someone else covered it. We covered it here on the live. The video did exceptionally well. Shout out to Tech Chasm. It went up to I think 1.1 million. But yeah, I think he titled it JD Vance shows us why his excellent speaking skills prove he'll be our next president. It was something like that. And I mean, he's done well. Like he does well with the way he responds. I can appreciate his transparency. He's very direct. He's clear. He articulates himself well. He's very forward thinking. You know, he's very clear. So it's like I can appreciate, you know, that we have a 40-year-old VP in office, and he's a millennial, and he's doing, at least what I think so far, a pretty decent job. So shout out to ABL, Anthony Bryant Logan. We cover some things by Anthony on the channel often here. Tampon Tim Waltz says he was picked to cold talk to white guys. Okay. Yeah, I'll go with that. We'll take a look at this one, and then we're going to go ahead and wrap this up so you guys can go ahead and get on with the rest of your night. Let's take a listen.
Tampon Tim Waltz, the current governor of Minnesota, the former VP pick of former Vice President Kamala Harris, coming out and saying that he was selected to be part of Kamala's team because he was able to cold talk to the white guys about playing football and working on the truck and all this, that, and the third. Masculine things, dude bro things. Now, this is totally hilarious because I called this last year. I know now, and I knew then, that they picked him for those reasons. But I also know now, as I knew then, that this guy is an obvious fairy, a dancing queen. So flamboyant, if he's not gay, I'd be surprised. If he's not gay, I can't tell. He has all the telltale signs of a gay man. And if that's his reality, then that's not really a big deal. Whatever, do what you want to do. You're an adult, that's your business, live your life. I'm not a homophobic person. What I am saying is that you can't put a gay dude, obviously gay dude, in a role where he's to be believed as a masculine man. It doesn't make any sense. Now, before I get into the video that he put out about this, let's go back a little bit. Now, this was an unreleased ad, okay? And when we watch it, you're going to be able to see why it was unreleased. But this right here has the spirit of why they picked him in the first place. Let's watch this from back during the campaign 2024. Then we're going to get to the new clip. And of course, this clip and the other will be in the description if you want to see it and hear it without my commentary. If you're an IG, Facebook, etc., visit the link in the bio, go to the corresponding article on the website. But without further ado, let's go ahead and roll it.
I love sinking into the couch, cold beer in my mouth, rooting for the Twins and 10. And I love sharing all my tools, playing by the rules.
Coach, okay? Go get him, coach.
We don't need to hear that.
Even my wife knows I'm not sharing my tools with you. Hey, if you take my drill and don't give it back, consider yourself dead to me. That's how I feel about that. But this ad was so cringe, they might as well have put it out. But maybe I think at a certain point, they were getting the message that guys were not feeling this whole white guy whisperer, football coach. They weren't really getting that message of what we were sinking in. So they just put it on the shelf and went in a different direction. Now let's get to the newer clip here in which he exposes what the plan was. Like, we didn't really know. We knew from the beginning what the plan was, Tampon Tim. All right, let's watch this.
I'm a team player. I'm with it. And there's folks that I recognize are smarter than me. They analyze this. You put your input in. Running a campaign that had never been run before, 100 days, in the situation we were at, running against a very unusual opponent on the other side. And look, my
let's pause for a second. So Trump is unusual. That's not a bad thing. I agree with you right there, Tim. Trump is unusual. Now, y'all think unusual is a bad thing, but it's not, because you guys, Tim, Kamala, you guys are the usual suspects. And we don't want you anymore, which is why Trump won. Really 3 times, in my humble opinion, but definitely twice.
Job was to do. Look, I was on the ticket. I would argue because we did a lot of amazing progressive things in Minnesota to improve people's lives. But I also was on the ticket, quite honestly, because I could code talk to white guys watching football, fixing their truck, doing that I could put them at ease. I was the permission structure to say, look, you can do this and vote for this. And you look across those swing states, with the exception of Minnesota, we didn't get enough of those votes.
But you can be giving them permission.
Now let's pause for a minute. Okay, so to the white guys out there, do you think Tim was able to quote unquote code talk to y'all? And what does that really mean? I feel like,
yeah, what does it really mean? So I want to stop it there because I'm gonna save most of that for tomorrow. So because shout out to Todd over at the Simple Investor, because Todd covered something that today that I wanted to react to. I'm gonna do that tomorrow, and this today, 2 days ago, that was very short after the Canadian election, to something that Anthony Logan said. What does that mean anyway? This is where Tim Ross, not Tim Ross, shout out to Tim Ross and Upset The World Studios. Great YouTube channel, go watch it, it'll change your life. Tim Waltz said that he was hired and put on to cold talk to white guys. I thought that was the most ridiculous thing I have ever heard. I'm going to react so much more to that tomorrow. But what do you guys say to that? Literally, come on, bro. Like, tell me. My white brothers. Seriously? My European brothers. Like, you're literally telling me that Tim Walsh was cold talking to y'all? Absolutely not. Absolutely not. But we're going to look more into that tomorrow. We're going to finish the video tomorrow. We're going to jump over to, shout out to Todd over at the Simple Investor. What happened in Canada? Federal election results. Let's take a listen.
So here's my question. What happened in Canada? I mean, we take a look at what happened last night during the election, and I think a lot of people are surprised. Listen, in all fairness, there's a fair number of people that are very happy about the election results. I do want to ask my U.S. followers, because it's always nice to hear a narrative from the U.S. What do you think of Canada's election and the outcome?
Shout out to Todd, man. I shout out the Simple Investor often. He was one of the first channels that I started to watch when I started to collect news from Canada, when I just wanted to be, closer to my Canadian friends and family, see what's going on there. Love the place, beautiful place. Support Canada and its sovereignty. Always have, pretty much always will. So pay very close attention to their politics. I know a lot of people are not happy with Justin Trudeau and the decade that he spent as Prime Minister. People said he pretty much has destroyed the economy, if not completely, it's on its way there. So when Todd says, I would love to hear from my American, friends and family, I'll tell you this, Todd. I was literally sick to my stomach. When I saw the results of you guys' election, here's what I felt like, right? Because there's other people I watch where I use them as a Canadian source as well. And a lot of them were very optimistic, and they said, hey, we got to work with what we got to work with. We got to do what we got to do. We're not going to have a meltdown. And granted, some people, they do have meltdowns the next day and they get over it. But the last time I felt that sick to my stomach, Todd, it was probably the night that I went to sleep, and every single number in polls showed that Donald Trump was winning, and I woke up and Joe Biden won. And the reason why I was sick to my stomach is not necessarily that Joe Biden won. It was more the fact that I could see blatantly that, one, he wasn't winning, and two, I knew that he didn't have a mandate from the people. So when I woke up, I was so sick to my stomach because I said, oh wow, I'm not gonna say exactly what was in my head because it's not YouTube friendly, but if we ever talk on the phone, I will. But let's just say I said there might have been some weird, perhaps interference going on here because this looked totally different just 8 hours ago. So yeah, I said to Canada, I said don't do it. I told him Todd, I said don't do it. I said he's giving Mark Carney, he's giving Joe Biden, he's giving Hillary Clinton. He's giving Kamala Harris, and that's all I'm gonna say, Todd. I can't say too much because you know we gotta play by the rules, but that's a small amount of my input.
A lot of people do say, hey, Todd, why do you care with the U.S.? Because they're our neighbors, they're our friends, they're our family, and I do like to know,
Shout out
the
to you,
different
Todd.
opinions. But I do want to know your opinion, because to me, this is, I'm not going to call it staggering, surprising would be more the case. What really did happen? I mean, the run up to this election, it was a quick snap election by Mark Carney. He wanted to turn around and get through this. Now, remember, one of the important things that we can look at as Canadians is that the Liberal government has a minority mandate. So it's not a majority, which doesn't give them free wheel power. The NDP almost lost party status. I mean, their numbers dropped. Even the Bloc dropped. A lot of this stuff was picked up by the Liberals as well as, the Conservatives. Conservatives actually had a better showing this election than last. But when we take a look at this entire thing, what happened? I know everybody's going to have an opinion where it comes down to, the pro-liberals will say, oh, Carney's the man for the job to fight Trump.
He's not.
Do we really have a fight with Trump? I mean, I always mention this because the tariffs have been on and off and on and again, on and on and off again. It's been an interesting kind of, cycle that we've seen over the last little while. So the only reason why Canadians vote Mark Carney to, be the prime minister is because he can fight Donald Trump. Well, Donald Trump's not somebody you fight, you negotiate. And when you concede a little, you get a lot. So again, we'll wait to see what Mr. Carney does and his government. But where is this leadership going to take Canada? They're now on their fourth mandate as a party. And again, Canada is where it is because of the Liberal government at this point. Some people are actually pro this and think that we're in great shape. I think one of the things that I noticed the most about this election was the fact that we had polar opposite opinions. You can see the hype around Pierre Poilievre and how everybody was excited about change, but not enough. Now, we can talk about, potential election tampering. There was all sorts of things that were kind of weird about this one. And when we take a look at even in Pierre's riding, where he lost, how many candidates were up for election in this riding? A massive number. So was there confusion built into this? I don't know, because you know what? It's the morning after, and a lot of people are going to be sitting there pretty much crying in their coffee, and some people are going to be cheering. I've already been through the office, and a lot of people are saying, so what do you think? I don't know what to think. I'd love to know what you think about this. Because in the end, Canada is still going to be Canada. You know what? No matter what, Canadians, each and every one of us, will continue to work hard. We need to focus on the most important things in our lives, which I always believe is, family, children, your neighbors, the next gen.
I agree.
But, did it get harder? I don't know. I think we're going to find out. But again, hopefully, we've got enough people out there that will continue to talk about what's happening politically. I'm not going to sit there and rant about Carney at this point, because there's a great deal of people that decided that he was their choice. You're entitled to your choice. That's part of being in a democratic society, that we're allowed to make a choice. Do I think your choice is right? Well, it's got to be for you. Because I can tell you that if I tell you my choice, we're not always going to agree. But again, that's my right. Am I happy about the election results? No, not necessarily. In fact, not at all. But that doesn't mean that I'm right or wrong, and you making your choice doesn't make you right or wrong. But the one thing that we need to know that is right is, as Canadians, it doesn't matter your party affiliation. You should be watching out for Canadians. And that's really important. You know what? We've been so divided in this election. I think one of the greatest things that needs to happen is all Canadians should start watching out for Canadians.
Yep.
You know what? If you're a Liberal, NDP, Bloc, Green one, but if you're any of those people, you're still a Canadian, aren't you? And I mean, really, isn't that what this should be about? Should an election not be about bringing, the country together? Well, we look south of the border and everybody thinks it's a great threat, but at least there's a leader there trying to get the country together on the same page. They have huge diversity as well. Well, I think it's time that we set aside our differences and start focusing on what truly matters. As a Canadian, I think it's really important that we do this. Again, I'd love to hear your comments on this. And most importantly, as I always say, as I wrap things up, make sure you're watching out for yourself, of course. You want me to be healthy and hardworking, tax-paying Canadians. Watch out for your family, of course, your children, and the next gen. I think that's going to be really important in our future as Canadians. Thanks for tuning in. I'm Tom C. Slater.
What if one day could change everything?
Tell me what he cannot do. My hope is based in Jesus.
Whether you're looking to get more.
All right, guys. With that being said, I'm going to go ahead and cut the live stream on the news-a-thons. We don't usually end with the Christian clip because it's just news. But I think I might start doing that, implementing it at some point. But I'll keep you guys updated on that. So until next time, which is tomorrow, joining us for our daily live stream, not same time because it was a late night tonight. Tomorrow we'll be on around 15:30, 1600. So that's 3:30, 4 p.m. And I will see you guys tomorrow. Take care of yourselves. Take care of one another. Love yourselves. Love one another. And be peaceful. Peace.